The Unexpected Night. It was a cold, moonlit evening in the quiet village of Elmsworth, where the streets were usually deserted after sundown. The village nestled between rolling hills and ancient woods, the kind of place where nothing extraordinary ever seemed to happen. The villagers followed a rhythm of life that hadn't changed for decades, with everyone in bed by 9 except for the occasional late-night owl who enjoyed the stillness of the night. Emily, a young woman in her mid-20s, lived on the outskirts of the village with her elderly grandmother. On this particular night, Emily had ventured into the village to attend a small gathering, a rare event in the sleepy town. As she made her way back home, the path leading to her house felt more eerie than usual. The wind howled through the trees, making the branches sway as if they were alive, and an uneasy feeling settled in the pit of her stomach. She quickened her pace, glancing nervously over her shoulder, wondering if her fears were just a trick of her imagination, or if there was something lurking in the shadows. Suddenly, the faint sound of footsteps echoed behind her, and Emily's heart began to race. She paused, straining her ears, but the footsteps stopped too. The silence that followed was deafening. Gathering her courage, Emily turned around, expecting to see nothing but empty darkness. To her shock, a tall, cloaked figure stood a few feet away, half hidden in the shadows. The figure didn't move or speak, just stood there, watching her. Fear gripped Emily as she stumbled backward, her breath quickening. "Who are you?" she managed to stammer, but there was no reply. Panic surged through her, and without thinking, she broke into a run. The narrow dirt road that led to her house seemed to stretch endlessly before her, and every second felt like an eternity. Behind her, she could hear the soft, deliberate footsteps again, as if the figure was toying with her, letting her think she could escape, but always staying just close enough to remind her of its presence. As Emily neared her home, she saw the faint glow of candlelight through the window, a beacon of safety in the oppressive darkness. She burst through the door, slamming it shut behind her, her chest heaving as she tried to catch her breath. Her grandmother, sitting calmly by the fire, looked up in surprise. "What's the matter, child?" she asked in her gentle voice. Emily could hardly speak, her words tumbling out in a jumbled mess as she tried to explain what had happened. But as she looked out the window, there was no sign of the figure. The night outside was still, as if nothing unusual had occurred. Her grandmother, wise and unshaken, smiled softly. "The night has its mysteries, Emily. Sometimes it tests our courage, but not everything that frightens us is meant to harm us." Confused but relieved to be home, Emily sat down by the fire, trying to shake off the fear that still clung to her. Yet, despite her grandmother's comforting words, she couldn't help but feel that the night had more to reveal. Hours passed, and just as Emily was beginning to drift off to sleep, there was a loud knock at the door. Her heart leapt into her throat. Who could be visiting at this late hour? Her grandmother, calm as ever, got up to answer, but Emily quickly grabbed her arm, pleading with her not to. The knock came again, more insistent this time. Reluctantly, Emily opened the door a crack, peeking through to see the same cloaked figure standing on the doorstep. But now, in the dim light of the candles, she could see the figure more clearly. It was not a stranger at all, but Thomas, a childhood friend she hadn't seen in years. He removed his hood, his face pale and anxious. "I didn't mean to frighten you," he said softly. "I was trying to find you earlier, but something terrible has happened." He explained that a nearby village had been attacked by bandits, and he had come to warn them. The figure that had terrified Emily was, in fact, her old friend, trying to protect her from the real danger lurking in the countryside. The night had indeed been unexpected, filled with fear and uncertainty, but it ended with the reassurance that sometimes what we fear the most is not always the greatest threat.